Hey, welcome to Kaijutopia. I'm Tom, and today we're going to be doing our first ever hypothetical what if video. I'm going to be going in chronological order, so even though Destroy All Monsters came out in 1968, since the storyline takes place in 1999, it's going to be the very last movie, the very last story that we tackle today in this hypothetical. Gojira 1954, since Godzilla never existed, that means there are no monster attacks yet. However, Dr. Serizawa is still very much alive, and because there's no Godzilla for him to sacrifice himself, that means this actually becomes a very interesting story in itself. I could have actually seen Ishiro Honda actually tackle a film just like this. Because in this movie, it's basically a love triangle, but not really, and it's going to end in a heartbreak for our friend Dr. Serizawa. Now, the thing is, unlike most heartbreaks, this one could prove to have catastrophic existential complications because he is the inventor of the oxygen destroyer. And while I don't think he's going to actually use it in this alternate timeline, or at least alternatively, I don't think because he had his heart broken by his betrothed that he is going to go, oh yeah, well, I'm gonna just drop the oxygen destroyer and destroy the world. If I can't have love, no one can. Wow. Okay. So that does not happen here. But just to recap, this does change things significantly, and we'll see how this plays out later. But even though there are no kaiju attacks and the love triangle goes awry, and Serizawa lives, so Serizawa is in play. That is already a big significant difference. And the reason why is because since he's in play, so is the oxygen destroyer. Alright, so we come to 1955, Godzilla raids again, but again, no Godzilla, which means, hey, we get to change the title again. And instead, it's more like Anguirus raids. So, pilot Kobayashi will be crash landing on an island where he will see Anguirus, or at least a sighting of him. And really, I don't believe we're going to see a monster attacking a city just yet. And the reason why is because since there's no Godzilla, Anguirus has no reason to go and level Osaka to the ground. So I think this becomes more of a monster mystery kind of. It's like because Kobayashi is stranded on an island and he's waiting for rescue. It's kind of like Castaway meets kaiju. Anyway, so even though no cities are attacked, it does raise the question about whether or not there are monsters in the world. And even though as of right now in this alternate reality, kaiju are still more mythological, more urban myths, I do think this will eventually play out in a big way. And not to mention one last thing, because in Godzilla Raids Again, near the very end of the movie, Godzilla actually kills Anguirus, the first Anguirus. And even though a second one does show up later and becomes Godzilla's best friend, what that means is in this alternate timeline, there are two Anguiruses. Two Anguiruses are in play. Alright, so we come to 1962. King Kong enters the fray, guys. And it's very similar to the plot of the movie in question. Even though Godzilla is nowhere to be seen, there's still a lot of the events play out the same. So in this film, it basically still maintains its anti-corporate greed theme. And so what happens is a giant Japanese conglomerate ape-naps Kong with the intention of turning him into its mascot. They unwisely take him to Tokyo, and here we have our first case where a major city is completely decimated by a giant monster. This confirms that monsters exist, and well, the world is quite frankly not ready for it. It's not prepared for it. and it's not prepared for what's still to come. At the end, though, even though Kong destroys Tokyo, he safely returns to his island, Faru Island. And personally, I think because there is no Godzilla, there's going to be this massive void that needs to be filled. As I mentioned earlier, even though the question became, will King Ghidorah or the Xiliens or the Kilaaks conquer the planet? What's going to happen? It's also another big question will be, will there be what monster is going to step up and become the hero we need, but not the hero we deserve? Yeah. Okay, so 1964, Mothra. Okay, so since this takes place 2 years after King Kong, it's highly unlikely that this, the tsunami at the very beginning of Mothra vs. Godzilla will catch Kong or any other monster. I mean, this is a kaiju world, so anything's possible. But what I really think plays out here is that largely what occurs is this the tsunami washes a mysterious egg. It brings a mysterious egg to shore, and this this corrupt corporation attempts to buy and use it. I mean, you're sensing already a theme. I mean, these films are rife with being anti-corruption. And since Godzilla didn't show up, what I think happens is the Mothra fairies, the Shobijin, actually managed to summon the mother Mothra, the fully grown Mothra, and she comes to save her children. And as we all know, eventually after she fought Godzilla and died saving her children, the egg hatched, and it was actually, we saw a pair of Mothras. Not just one, but two Mothra larvae twins. And this is huge because in later films, we kind of learn that one of them dies, and we never really are told why, but personally, I thought it's because Godzilla, at this point, he was still a huge antagonist. And since he's no longer around, that means a couple things. The biggest one is that the adult Mothra, the Imago, she is still alive. She isn't killed by Godzilla's radiation. His atomic breath. She isn't killed by Godzilla's atomic breath, which means she's still around. So we got not one, not two, but three Mothras in play. So just to recap so far, King Kong is alive and well. He's going to be playing a more active role. There are two Anguiruses in the world. There are three Mothras, one fully grown, the other were just recently born. And also, Serizawa is alive, and the Oxygen Destroyer is on the board. So it's 1964, and we come to Ghidorah, the three-headed monster. Wow. Okay, so you think Ghidorah's apocalyptic presence definitely, would lay, would attract the attention of all the monsters and make them all come out of the woodwork, because this is pretty dangerous. I mean, he's the destroyer of worlds, so you think this would be a all-hands-on-deck situation, but of course that didn't quite happen in the original film, and similarly it kind of doesn't happen here. The major monsters that appeared then will appear still, but without Godzilla things get a little bit more interesting. But a couple things. Ghidorah's origin, of course, is untouched. It's the same. He's a world killer. And of course we would later find out that long ago Ghidorah wiped out all life on Venus. And I think he came here. I think he came here, and the reason why I'm adding this little tweak to his origin is because he not only arrived on Earth, but he did so a long time ago and killed the dinosaurs and possibly wiped out Godzilla's earliest ancestors. So in this alternate timeline, Ghidorah is the reason why there is no Godzilla species, because Ghidorah killed them millions of years ago. Not only that, but Ghidorah has been to this planet before, and in fact he tried coming here not too long after Ghidorah wiped out all life on Venus. In fact, Ghidorah not only came to Earth, he was repelled by one of its oldest protectors, King Caesar. So more on the Okinawan golem later on, but I thought I would throw that in because it's pretty cool. But King Caesar is in deep hibernation, so he's not going to wake up and come and face his arch nemesis anytime soon, which means Mothra has to step up. And now, since again there are actually 3 Mothras, there's the fully grown Mothra, and then there are her 2 children. And what happens is Mothra realizes, I can't, I'm old, I can't, even at my prime, even at my peak, I don't think I can take Ghidorah. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to send my children out, and we're gonna spread out, and we're gonna try and recruit as many to our cause as possible. And I think ultimately, you know, they do succeed in recruiting King Kong and Rodan. And it kind of plays out similarly to what happened before, but I do think there will be some casualties. I think Ghidorah kills the eldest Mothra, but I do think the combined strength of Kong, Rodan, and the other 2 Mothras, the other 2 Mothra larvae who are there, and that means they're able to web up Ghidorah a lot faster. And the other thing to consider here is that King Kong exhibits some electromagnetic abilities. He's able to absorb electricity and electrocute his enemies. So Kong becomes kind of like the anti-Ghidorah weapon here. And so Kong, Rodan, and the Mothra succeed and manage to repel Ghidorah. But not for long! It's 1965, and the previous events do not go unnoticed. Planet X has come to Earth under false pretenses, and what happens is they draft King Kong and Rodan into their monster army. They, through mind control, join forces with King Ghidorah, and the hostile aliens attack the planet. Okay, so I want to I think you know, again, not much terribly changes here. I do think it's a far more interesting take because you know, when the humans are able to break the monster mind control, they're able to free the monsters from Planet X's mind control device, and by using the A-cycle light ray guns. And I'm gonna just point this out. It's strange that we never saw them again, which is a shame. So I'm gonna change that. And you know, this is an alternate timeline, so I'm gonna do what I can to make this as interesting as possible. And so here's what I think happens. I think what happens is Kong and Rodan still make Ghidorah. They similarly, you know, how, you know, I think what happens, the 3 monsters tumble off the side of a cliff and into the water. Ghidorah, you know, is the only one that appears to have survived, and he flies to outer space. But Kong and Rodan are still very much alive, and the A-cycle light ray guns will make a return someday, because it just seems so strange that, you know, all this technology, all these weapons that prove to be highly effective against the monsters just suddenly disappear in the blink of an eye. You know, it's interesting, when we come to 1966, Ebirah, I think that's how you say it. Ebirah, Horror of the Deep, takes place in 1966, and, you know, in the original storyline, King Kong was supposed to be the kaiju protagonist. But then later, you know, due to, you know, I think, you know, copyright issues and everything, which would plague every future sort of film Toho wanted to do with Kong, you know, they elected to go with Godzilla. And, you know, this is kind of where in the original timeline, Godzilla started becoming a little bit more anthropomorphized. He started becoming more human-like, exhibiting human-like expressions and such. But, you know, being anthropomorphic is not that difficult for Kong, who is, you know, a giant ape. So I think Kong fills the role here perfectly, in fact. And for whatever reason, I guess you could say the recent fight with King Ghidorah back-to-back has left Kong extremely tired. So he arrived at this mysterious island to rejuvenate his strength. And, you know, the events play out very similarly to the movie. I mean, I know I keep saying that, but I think, you know, this actually fits. This is probably the most, like, accurate. I mean, this there's not much I really have to do here because, again, Kong was in the original story. So here's what I think what goes down. Since there are two Mothras, two Mothra larvae, their mom was killed by Ghidorah a few years ago. So here's what I think happens. I think we have two fully grown Mothras. So two Mothras are now flying around. The human characters, the good guys, are able to revive Kong by, hitting him with lightning and such, which, not only wakes him up, it gives him a bit of a power boost, and he proceeds to have one awesome fight with Ebirah. So Ebirah is, he and Godzilla had a good bout. I thought the fight was really well choreographed. And, I love the how they were throwing the giant rock back and forth like volleyball, baseball, and stuff. That was great. That was good. But since Kong doesn't have an atomic breath, it's going to be a lot more difficult for him to take Ebirah down, but I think he could do it. So in 1967, a team of scientists travel to Faro Island and use it as their weather manipulating petri dish. But their science, of course, as is usually the case in these movies, the science goes awry, mutating the island's wildlife and putting its native human inhabitants in mortal danger. Kong does not take kindly to this, but his hands are full when swarms of ravenous Anguirus sweep the island. The arachnid terror Kumonga awakens, and Kong is a daddy? That's right, folks. We have Son of Kong. Alright, so at this point in this alternate Showa timeline of mine, Kong has become the de facto main monster character. I think he has succeeded in filling Godzilla's protagonist role, and he's slowly on his way to becoming the defender of Earth. What happened with Godzilla, who was, this nuclear horror and death bringer of destruction character who then later became a superhero. So anyway, since there are no Godzillas, that means what's the point? Where's Kong's son? And I think what happens is Kong saves little Kong, or Kiko. I'm gonna take the giant albino gorilla from the actual Son of Kong movie, so I'm bringing him into the fold. And what happens is Kong saves Kiko from a flock of ravenous Kilaaks. And we're gonna watch Kong teach this little Kong how to fight and craft tools in rather entertaining ways, because one of my favorite, Son of Godzilla is a great movie too. I love this movie. In fact, in my one monstrous moment, I chose Son of Godzilla, and I think the movie was really quite prevalent in humanizing Godzilla for the first time. And in many respects, I think it does the same thing for Kong here. This is really good because now with after I became a dad, my view of the world changed dramatically. And having kids, being in charge of another life, that makes you want to be better. So I think the same thing applies to Kong, and in the end, I think Kiko comes to his adoptee. I think, okay, I'm gonna keep it a little ambiguous. I don't know if Kiko is actually Kong's biological son or not, but it really doesn't matter. Speaking as someone who was adopted, really, it comes down to if you were raised and loved. That is what matters the most. And Kiko, having learned from Kong, his father, how to fight, how to craft tools, I think that all comes into play in the final battle against Kumonga, where both Kongs, work things out. And come on, that after finishing off Kumonga, okay, so they succeeded in defeating Kumonga, and we get to that ending scene. You know how Godzilla embraced Manila in the snow. I mean, it's beautiful. The same thing, I think that plays out here. Kong can't, he could get off the island because the human characters succeeded in reversing their, shenanigans from earlier. They screwed up the weather, but they managed to make things right. But, hey, it's going to cause, an unexpected snowstorm. We got to get out of here. well, Kong could leave on his own, but he doesn't because, you know, he loves his son, you know, and his son can't exactly leave as quickly. So what Kong does is, you know, he's like, okay, I'll stay. And, you know, it's going to be it's heartwarming. I can totally see this happening. Kong embraces his son in the snow, and the two hibernate together until it thaws. So, in 1969, all monsters attack. Okay, so I think Ichiro adopts King Kong as his idol, very similarly to how he idolized Godzilla. Something I could definitely relate as a kid. And I think what occurs here is, you know, we don't know if the monster fights were real, or if they were imagined. I guess it doesn't matter because we're treated to a fight between King Kong and Gabra. This is actually really cool because both are incredibly strong monsters, and they I think this becomes a literal electrifying showdown between these two. You know, eventually Kong wins, but it actually, I think this would be a really good brawl. 1971's Hedorah. I am gonna combine this with 1972's Gigan as well. So Hedorah and Gigan, these are gonna become a massive two-parter because there's a lot that happens here, guys. Whew. Okay. Things are also gonna get dark and depressing. Because as far as Showa threats go, Hedorah is the worst. Alright, so humankind has really, humankind might have the means of stopping the smog monster, but Japan will first suffer major, like heavy casualties before Hedorah is stopped. Defeated, but not destroyed. And so I think I think in this storyline we're going to see a lot of changes get made here. So Earth's monsters' involvement. Okay, so when it comes to why is it that only Godzilla showed up, you know, this is because the screenwriter wanted him to. But in this revised timeline, I think given how apocalyptic Hedorah is, this is a case of not a matter of whether the monster's involvement is a matter of if, but when. Okay, so look, if the Earth monsters fail to act, it'll be too late. Hedorah will destroy all life on the planet. So I see, what I think will happen is Hedorah initially will fly over Faro Island, and all of the natives will die from the toxic fumes, and Kong gets even more pissed off when he finds out that Kiko, his son, is badly ill. So Kong, now vowing vengeance, is like, I'm going to find this thing and I'm going to destroy it. So now Kong's involvement is personal. And I think Mothra gets involved too. And again, there are two Mothras in play, fully grown. And I think this is something Mothra would involve herself in because Hedorah, again, is like the world's biggest threat. But whatever may happen, I think the final battle is King Kong versus Hedorah. And if you guys might recall, in the original movie, you know, Godzilla was clearly at a disadvantage, so he uses atomic breath to activate these giant electrodes that the JSDF built. And I think they will play out, they will be a factor in this, and when they're activated, I mean, drama, they don't activate right away, who knows, maybe, you know, they find out, I guess. Oh gosh, I'm gonna put myself up against in a corner here. So somehow the the giant electrodes activate when Kong is, you know, holding Hedorah at bay, and the electrodes not only weaken, severely dehydrate Hedorah, the electricity gives Kong a huge power up. And while he's unable to completely destroy Hedorah, a second one does, escape. And unlike Godzilla, again, who retrofitted his atomic breath and flew, Kong can't exactly fly. So what Kong does eventually do, however, is take his new, supercharged energy. He returns to Faroe Island and, revives his son. So while, things are a little depressing, there is that, it's not the end of Kong's lineage, and the two recover together. Like I said, it's a two-parter because Hedorah is not completely destroyed. And in 1972, Gigan, okay, so in this storyline, we're going to pick up where we just left off. And it's a doozy, guys. So Ghidorah and Gigan cause significantly more damage. And at this point, both Anguiruses show up, and the two of them, quite simply, are not enough to stop the space monsters. And just when things seem like the Nebula Space Hunter M aliens might actually succeed in taking over the world, Hedorah returns, and he's a lot bigger and more powerful than ever. So these, I think it would be a really cool idea to see the aliens put aside, the hostile alien invaders, put aside their differences and go, listen, we want your planet. We're going to take it over. We're not going to hide that. But it looks like the enemy of my enemy is my friend. So how about this? How about we join forces, and then after that, winner take all. And, the humans have really no choice but to accept. And so what we're going to end up seeing is a massive team up here. So on one side, we have Team Anguirus, King Ghidorah, Gigan, and also King Kong having, he finds out Hedorah, the monster that almost killed his son, killed his own, his natives, his worshippers. That monster has returned and he's more powerful than ever. Oh yeah, he's gonna want a piece of this. And so King Kong, Anguiruses, Ghidorah and Gigan on one side, and they're taking on Hedorah. And everyone goes all out here, and things get even more, just crazy. Just imagine the Godzilla Tower. Wait. Wow. Okay, so I said Godzilla Tower. Sorry. Let me refrain here. Let me take another stab. The Kong Tower doesn't really do that much. I mean, maybe they installed some laser beam in his mouth. Why not? Anyway, just imagine this huge battle taking place around the Kong Tower, right? So, I'll point out that this Ghidorah, the Ghidorah that showed up in Godzilla vs. Gigan is actually not the OG. It turns out this was a different Ghidorah. And I think in order to really hit home the fact that Hedorah is, apocalyptic, he kills this Ghidorah. Hedorah kills King Ghidorah. And at this point, there's really not much that could be done to stop him. Until Dr. Serizawa returns and sacrifices his life, because that's what Serizawas do. He sacrifices his life by activating the oxygen destroyer, which in turn annihilates Hedorah. Smoke clears, and the humans double cross their alien allies because they know what's going to happen next. So they bring back the Ace Cycle Light Rays, they destroy the mind control, freeing all the monsters, and now those aliens have no choice but to go, well, that happened. We would have conquered the world if it wasn't for those darn humans. Those double-crossing humans. Alright, so I think what happens after this is Kong smashes Kong Tower apart, destroys the Nebulans. Gigan retreats, just like in the original movie. And I think at this point, Kong and Anguirus become good friends. I mean, I don't think Ghidorah is the only one who died. I think the other Anguirus at this point probably died in the initial scruffle between the two Anguiruses versus Ghidorah and Gigan anyway. I can't see something as powerful as Hedorah killing Ghidorah. God, that's a mouthful. And, one of the Anguiruses just doesn't, suffer. So, you know what? It's done. Kong and Anguirus become good friends. And here's the thing. Even though the Oxygen Destroyer is no longer in play, at this point, I think it's safe to assume that Serizawa's Oxygen Destroyer blueprints have most likely arrived in the hands of a government or two, or 100. Who knows? And not only that, but the humans have become increasingly more powerful because now they have their hands on, these new anti-kaiju super weapons. And now they have access to alien technology too. So I think the humans are well on their way to becoming a greater, more powerful presence in these movies, in this alternate timeline. 1973, Seatopia attacks with Megalon. Jet Jaguar betrays them and recruits King Kong for help. So we're treated to a great team-up battle between, on one side we have King Kong and Jet Jaguar going up against Megalon and Gigan. I see Kong and Jet Jaguar prevailing there. And I'm just going to say that Jet Jaguar should have returned. I mean, we've been treated to his return recently, I guess, in Godzilla Singular Point, but it took decades for him to come back. No, not happening now. Jet Jaguar. No. Jet Jaguar will return. It's going to be like at the end of a Marvel movie. Jet Jaguar will return in Avengers, or in this case, my revised alternate Showa timeline. I'm not going to let Jet Jaguar just fade into nothing. Okay? It's 1974. There's no Godzilla, so there wouldn't be a Mecha-Godzilla. I mean, the aliens, the black hole aliens, they still are going to try and conquer the Earth, right? But they're not going to go, we built this giant robot in the image of a creature that you don't know. Maybe because they, were near a black hole, they were privy to some sort of parallel universe where Godzilla exists. No. That's okay. So what happens here is they attack the Earth, but instead have turned their giant war machine into Mecha-Kong. Mecha-Kong, guys. Yes, Mecha-Kong has entered, and he is upgraded. Mecha-Kong has deadly eye beams of death. He's got revolving missiles in his fingertips, or finger missiles. He's got it all. Whatever Mecha-Godzilla had, Mecha-Kong has it as well. And of course, in the beginning, Mecha-Kong masquerades as Kong. And when Anguirus shows up, he's like, you're not the real Kong. And, Mecha-Kong is like, yes, I am. And then beats the snot out of Anguirus. And then later on, we're gonna kind of revisit. Earlier I mentioned that in Earth's history, King Caesar repelled King Ghidorah. Well, I think now King Caesar, it's time for him to return. It's time for him to wake up. So the Azumi princess sings for several hours, wakes King Caesar up, and then we're later treated to a showdown between King Kong and King Caesar, Team King taking on Mecha-Kong. The King duo barely win because Kong develops magnetic powers. Now this is actually more likely than Godzilla doing it, because Kong, again, now has these previously established electromagnetic powers, so it's really not a huge leap that he manages to convert them into pure magnetism. Who knows, maybe he's related to Magneto or something. Picture Kong with Magneto's helmet. Alright, so 1975, Terror of Mecha-Kong, because we just couldn't get enough of Mecha-Kong, guys. And a couple of things play out here a lot differently. I think, even with his magnetic powers, I don't think King Kong can take on the combined might of Mecha-Kong and Titanosaurus. But the humans, you know, because at this point they're very well experienced in severing, you know, alien mind control over monsters, they do succeed in liberating Titanosaurus in time. And what I think happens here is Kong and Titanosaurus team up and stop Mecha-Kong, but by that point, Kong is just, you know, he can't handle it. So I think Kong dies here, guys. I can't see him winning or like surviving this long. After everything he's also gone through, I mean, he's fought the likes of King Ghidorah, Gigan, and Hedorah. So now what? I mean, Mecha-Kong just proves too much for the great ape, and I do think he dies. But we're also going to see the beginning of Titanosaurus's redemptive arc. Destroy all monsters. It is the year 1999. Kong has become memorialized as the savior of Earth. He's remembered as a hero. I mean, there's a university named after him. But that doesn't stop the Kilaaks from attacking. They mind control the kaiju population. I mean, they clearly took notes. They're like, why do all these other aliens just mind control one or two monsters? Let's mind control all of them. And you know what? Let's mind control some of the humans too, so they don't break our mind control. Duh. But I think what happens here is King Caesar really steps up. He returns because he's kind of like the general of Earth's monsters, and I think one, he would be unaffected by the mind control, and two, it's good to see King Caesar return, but he's not the only monster returning here. Okay, so I understand, because this movie took place in like 1968, that some characters that would come later on in later films, you know, they don't appear here, even though, you know, timeline wise they should already, like, if I jump to 1999 in this storyline and I'm like, where's Titanosaurus, it's not like everyone's gonna go, who dat? Titanosaurus? Oh, they didn't make that movie yet. But time, blah blah blah. So alright, so here's what I think happens here. I mean, a lot of shenanigans ensue, but we get to that final epic battle at Mount Fuji. And this is where it's more than just, you know, the Earth monsters gather to fight just King Ghidorah. I think the Kilaaks go all out. And King Ghidorah is not alone. The Kilaaks bring in Gigan, they bring in Megalon, the Fire Dragon, which is really the Kilaak mothership in disguise. Spoilers. So on one side we have those space monsters, and on the other we have the Earth monsters being led by the mighty King Caesar. We have Rodan, Mothra, actually two Mothras, right? We have Gorosaurus, Jaguar's in the house too, guys. He's there too. Anguirus, Kumonga, Baragon, and then the Moonlight SY3. And of course, Titanosaurus has come Because again, he has that redemption. He was there. In a way, he played a role in King Kong's untimely demise, and this is how he's going to make things right. And it's an all-out monster battle. It's like, I mean, this is all I can say, guys. I wish I could show you. I wish I could, like, go, and now I'm going to play the entire sequence of events from this parallel timeline, because it's so amazing. So I'm sorry, just use your imaginations. So like I see Rodan, Mothra, and the Moonlight SY3 teaming up to take down the Fire Dragon, which in turn, they'll expose it as being the Kilaaks mothership. The Acycle Light Ray guns, because I love them so much, return, and mind control, all of that jazz already taken care of. We get to see an intense showdown between King Caesar and King Ghidorah, because again, in this alternate timeline, these two have a rivalry, and it's intense. But King Ghidorah, this is the OG too. This isn't the one that was killed off in Gigan. That was like a pale imitation of Ghidorah. Anyway, this Ghidorah, he's been around absorbing supernovas. He's been destroying planets. This is the OG three-headed dragon. He is here to lay waste. And try as he might, King Caesar needs help. Titanosaurus is there, but not even he can make a huge enough difference. Like, literally everyone. We're throwing all of our heavy hitters at Ghidorah, and it's still not enough. Until a fully grown Kiko joins the protectors of the planet. Kiko he's now walking in the footsteps of his father. He makes his father proud. Kiko is there, and he is able, like his father, to absorb Ghidorah's electrical beams, which makes him even stronger. And now the scales have been tipped in favor of Earth, and in this amazing final showdown, the monsters of Earth, we have King Caesar, we have Titanosaurus, Jaguar, all of them, plus Kiko, the new King Kong. They all manage to demolish, they bring King Ghidorah down. The Earth is saved. But then the mother load of human armies arrive, and they plan on just going, you know what, screw these monsters, right? And man, they are packing some major, firepower, like I mentioned before. I mean, they don't even need the oxygen destroyer. These guys have been, building up their arsenal. They have modified Xilien ship lasers, paralyzing Acycle Light Rays, the Kong Tower laser weapons. Thanks to Mecha-Kong, now they can, retrofit his own beams and revolving missiles. They might as well just threaten to drop the oxygen destroyer on these monsters and call it a day. But the Moonlight SY3, they're all like, yo, these guys just saved the world, right? And they managed to talk him down. And at this point, again, thanks to Kong's sacrifice from years back and the fact that all these monsters have stepped up, and instead of just one monster filling the void left in, removing Godzilla from the timeline, all these monsters fill it. So it's not just Godzilla who was the main hero, or in this case, it's not just King Kong who became the hero of Earth. All of them, Anguirus, Jaguar, Titanosaurus, King Caesar, they all become the protectors of Earth. And at that point, humans and monsters, they're able to unite. And I think balance has been achieved. Alright, so real quick, I think in this new storyline there's quite a number of monster promotions. I mean, we got Titanosaurus' redemptive arc, King Caesar with his new backstory, his rivalry with King Ghidorah, Mecha-Kong, I mean, yeah, that's a huge upgrade. And of course, Hedorah himself also, thanks to that two-parter, became a huge... Gosh, guys, I want to see Hedorah return so badly, because this guy is, like... he epitomizes doom. But I think the MVP, the monster MVP for this new timeline goes to King Kong. I know initially Toho wanted to, make Kong, the face of their monster movies. That didn't work out, so, they went with Godzilla, and we're all happy they did. Don't get me wrong. I'm fine with the way things actually turned out. But I think in this hypothetical monster what if, King Kong most certainly would be the hero, would most certainly be the most valuable monster. So it's not MVP, it's MVM. Yeah, so the MVM goes to King Kong for being the most valuable monster. Alright guys, well that's a wrap. I mean, if you have anything to add, like any other theories, ideas, what do you think would happen? Please chime down in the comment section below. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I enjoy making them for you, and I hope you all have a monster-tastic day.